Feel free to check out my TeePublic after the video, and support me on Patreon. Watch till the end of the video for more. Special thanks to Patreon supporter Big O for commissioning this video. If there's something you want me to make a video about, then go support me on Patreon. Link is in the description. So right off the bat, I just want to start off this video by apologizing for the lack of footage that'll be shown. Not because I couldn't find a good copy of this movie online or that I ran out of time, but because a lot of the material in this movie, I just can't show it. There's so much of it that I can't really use a lot of footage for it in this video without getting demonetized or having my monetization be limited. Yeah, my content for the most part is rather tame, and I always want to have my input come from a more informative and educational standpoint, though sometimes that's just not gonna cut it here on YouTube. Like, I actually lost money from my Tetsuo review because I showed footage of a man sticking a metal rod in his leg. And I also lost money on my Toho 815 video because the movies I was covering just happened to be pretty gory. But with that out of the way, onto the review. David Cronenberg is a name I'm sure every cult film and special effects aficionado is familiar with. On this channel, I can talk hours about the talents of Keita Mamiya, Shinji Higuchi, Eiji Tsuburaya, and Teruyoshi Nakano, but overseas, Cronenberg is easily one of the most recognizable for not just his fantastic effects work, but also his trademark surreal, psychological body horror aesthetic that's popular enough to inspire the likes of Katsuhiro Otomo and Shinya Tsukamoto. Whether it's Scanners, The Fly remake, or Videodrome, Cronenberg has undoubtedly become a household name when it comes to this particular form of underground cinema. Underground in the sense that they go against the mainstream and truly feel like products of rich, artistic integrity of their creator. So much that multiple Cronenberg films are part of the Criterion Collection. But another thing about Cronenberg is his ambition. During the making of Videodrome, he played with the concept of hallucinations, mixed with his horrific and graphic style. And when adapting William S. Burroughs' controversial novel Naked Lunch, he acknowledged that the movie would have been unfilmable and could have gotten banned in every country if it were to be made as a direct adaptation. So when time came for 1996's Crash, which is perhaps Cronenberg's most controversial film yet, he was pretty much prepared for anything. Based on J.G. Ballard's novel, the premise of Crash is that a film producer, James Ballard, played by James Spader, and his wife are in an open marriage and have numerous sexual escapades on their own. One day, James gets into a collision and is badly injured. While he recovers, he gets close to Dr. Helen Remington, the driver of the car he collided with, played by Holly Hunter, and the two have an affair, as they try to figure out why they're so turned on by their car accident. Yes, you heard that correctly. There's another doctor named Vaughn that James and Helen know, played by Elias Koteas, and it turns out that he has a legit fetish for car accidents. In fact, he has an entire scrapbook of photos that he has acquired and taken of fatal car accidents where people died, even going as far as to show it off to James.
It's something we are all intimately involved in, the reshaping of the human body by modern technology.
And from here, self-discovery, sex, and chaos ensue. I mean, I'm sure you'd go out and do some soul searching once you realize you're attracted to car crashes. Like seriously, there's a scene where Vaughn and James drive by an accident and Vaughn straight up pulls out a camera and starts taking photos as he's moaning and breathing heavily. Now, you're probably thinking, what the fuck kind of movie is this? And let me tell you, that was my initial reaction when watching this. I mean, where else are you gonna see a movie about people who get turned on over car crashes? But I am absolutely certain that there was a method to Cronenberg's madness during the making of this movie. Sex and car crashes act as a sort of yin and yang, representing life and death respectively. And once the two are combined, it doesn't just create a paradox, but completes the cycle of life itself. It is the very concept of death itself looming above that give us a purpose to live, and to continue thriving with whatever short time we may have. And it is through this that Cronenberg exploits humanity's rather sick fascination with death and destruction itself. as it's something we cannot escape from. Yet the act of it happening upon others only reminds us of our own mortality. But on top of it all, when all things come to an end, that is when we will truly be one, as chaos would result in all of us uniting together as a singular species. And let us not forget humanity's bond with the machine, as without it we would no longer progress. The machine is one of many things that give us a purpose to live. However, machines are imperfect, much like humans. We ourselves even function like machines, making the line between the two blur. For we have become inseparable from one another, which helps beg these questions. What does it truly mean to live? What defines us as the human race? And what does having sex with a woman's leg scar feel like? And Cronenberg, being one of the pioneers of the body horror subgenre, truly defines himself with this film by playing around with the aforementioned fascination with sex and violence. Crash is a movie that truly appeals to the senses. It also helps that the 90s was a decade in media where we began to explore our own humanity. Media became a lot more grounded and real. Creators weren't afraid to venture into unfamiliar and sensitive territory. You know, saying all this honestly makes it even more hilarious that James Spader would later play Ultron. Should also note that this is what Howard Shore was doing before he scored Lord of the Rings. Though unfortunately, this didn't click with audiences initially, during its premiere at Cannes, as the content of sexual acts being instigated by violence had upset many people, including Francis Ford Coppola, the jury president of the 1996 festival. So much, in fact, that Cronenberg actually received the rare special jury prize for its daring originality and audacity. But the madness does not stop there. The UK was actually upset by its portrayal of physically challenged persons, except that the people who saw it that were physically challenged had no problem with it, which only made it even harder to justify a ban for the film. So the film was essentially untouched over there. And the US release for the film was actually delayed by a couple seasons because Ted Turner of the movie's distributor Fine Line Features just didn't like it. Theater chain AMC even went as far as to place security guards for about 30 screens that was showing the movie to ensure no one underage sneaks in to see it. Now, for those who did sneak into it, I want to hear y'all's stories. However, the movie would get banned in the West End of London. And like a lot of controversial movies, there were two versions. The original uncut version of Crash is rated NC-17, but there's also an R-rated version that trims down the sex and violence. But let's be real, the NC-17 version is where it's at. But despite the amount of people rallying against this film at the time, Crash would go on to receive some form of critical success. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars out of 4, saying that Cronenberg has made a movie that is pornographic in form, but not in result, and that Crash is like a porno movie made by a computer. It downloads gigabytes of information about sex, it discovers our love affair with cars, and it combines them in a mistaken algorithm. The result is challenging, courageous, and original. A dissection of the mechanics of pornography. I admired it, although I cannot say I liked it. Yes, you fucking did, Roger. Don't you try to gaslight us. But that's not all. Martin Scorsese even ranked Crash as the 8th best movie of the 1990s. Who said cinema was dead? Though interestingly enough, J.G. Ballard, the author of the original novel that Crash is based on, even came out and said that the movie was superior to the book, calling it more powerful and dynamic. And the last cherry on top of this fascinating sundae is that this movie was considered to contain just enough artistic integrity and significance to be included in the Criterion Collection. So there you have Crash. It's got cars, sex, what more do you want? And honestly, I thank you, Big O, because this was a very interesting commission. But what do you guys think? Have you seen Crash? Did my subjective interpretation of its thematic elements interest you? Go ahead and comment below. I also want to remind y'all that this video was commissioned by a Patreon supporter, so if you want me to review or just make a video about something, then subscribe to the $10 mobile suit tier or above on my Patreon. But if you can't afford that, you can still sub to a lower tier for your name at the end of every future upload, early access to videos, and exclusive content. And once I reach enough patrons, I'll do a video covering several unmade Godzilla films, so if that's something you like to see, then go support me on Patreon. Feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and this is TitanGoji, signing off. Now I can cross reviewing a movie where people get aroused by car crashes off my bucket list. I think I can pretty much make a video for any movie now.